The blue light of computer screens lit up Dr. Eric Mason's tired face. His eyes burned from staring at the same patterns for 16 hours straight. The clock on the wall of the International Space Center in Houston showed 3:27 a.m., but Eric had lost track of time long ago. "There's something here," he muttered to himself, rubbing his eyes. At 45, Eric was the best xenolinguist on Earth. If anyone could make sense of the strange signals from Proxima Centauri, it was him. The signals had started 3 months ago. At first, everyone thought they were just random space noise. But Eric noticed something different. The patterns repeated, but not in any way that matched known cosmic events. They changed slightly each time, like someone trying different words to make themselves understood. His office door opened, and Director Patel walked in with 2 cups of coffee. "You look like you need this," she said, placing 1 cup next to his keyboard. "Any progress?" Eric took a sip of the hot coffee and nodded slowly. "These aren't random. See this cluster here?" He pointed to a group of wave patterns on his screen. "It shows up every 73 minutes, and here..." He clicked to another screen. The same pattern but slightly changed, like it's being adjusted. "You think it's communication?" Director Patel asked, her voice careful. The world wasn't ready for aliens, but the evidence was getting harder to ignore. "I think someone is trying very hard to get our attention," Eric answered. On the other side of the building, Kate Powell stood in front of a large window, looking at the starship that would soon take her farther from Earth than any human had ever gone. The Meridian was beautiful, sleek and silver against the night sky, built for humanity's first real venture into the stars. At 38, Kate had spent 20 years preparing for this moment. She had flown everything from fighter jets to space shuttles. She had 3 PhDs and had spent 5 years on the moon base. She was ready. At least that's what she kept telling herself. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. It was a message from Director Patel. "Meeting in room 7, now." Kate took one last look at the Meridian and headed to the meeting room. When she arrived, she found 4 other people already seated around the table. Director Patel, Dr. Eric Mason, pilot Greg Wells, and systems specialist Alan Wright. A minute later, Dr. Olivia Diaz, the team's medic, hurried in. "Sorry I'm late," Olivia said, taking the empty seat next to Kate. Director Patel nodded and turned on the screen behind her. It showed a swirling blue circle near Jupiter's orbit. "This appeared 2 weeks ago," she said. "We've been keeping it quiet while we study it." "Is that what I think it is?" Greg asked, leaning forward. "If you think it's a wormhole, then yes," Director Patel replied. "And its appearance lines up exactly with the start of the signals Dr. Mason has been studying." All eyes turned to Eric, who cleared his throat nervously. "The signals aren't like any language we know," he explained. "They're not based on sound or light patterns like human languages. They seem to be emotional imprints encoded in gravitational waves." "Emotional imprints?" Kate asked. "What does that mean?" Eric pulled up some images on his tablet and passed it around. "These patterns change based on what we send back. When we sent mathematical sequences, they responded with similar, but more complex patterns. When we sent music, they sent back what seems like emotional responses, patterns that create feelings when processed through our new quantum computers." "And what are they saying?" Alan asked, his eyes wide with wonder. Eric looked around the table. "The most common pattern translates to something like remember. It's the same pattern over and over with small changes, like someone trying to make sure we understand that one word." Director Patel took back control of the meeting. "Your mission has changed. The Meridian will no longer be heading to Proxima Centauri. Instead, you'll investigate this wormhole and determine if it's safe for travel. If it is, you'll go through and attempt first contact." The room fell silent as everyone processed this news. "When do we leave?" Kate finally asked. "Tomorrow," Director Patel answered. "The signals are getting stronger. Whatever or whoever is on the other side seems to be getting urgent. The launch was perfect." Kate felt the familiar push of acceleration as the Meridian broke free from Earth's gravity. In 3 days, they would reach Jupiter's orbit and the mysterious wormhole. During the journey, Eric worked nonstop trying to understand more of the signals, which were getting clearer as they got closer to the wormhole. "It's like they know. We're coming," he told Kate on the third day as they floated in the ship's observation room, looking at the distant spot where the wormhole waited. "Are they friendly?" Kate asked the question that had been on everyone's mind. Eric shrugged. "The emotional signatures are complex. There's fear, lots of it, but also hope. And something else I can't quite place. Something like longing." "Not very reassuring," Kate said with a small smile. "First contacts never are," Eric replied. The wormhole was beautiful up close, a swirling vortex of blue and purple light, floating silently in the darkness of space. The Meridian approached slowly, scanning and measuring everything. All readings are stable, Alan reported from his station. "The wormhole appears to be artificially created and maintained." "The signals are coming from the other side," Eric added. "They're much clearer now." Kate looked at her crew. They had trained for this moment, but nothing could truly prepare them for being the first humans to enter a wormhole. "Safety protocols in place," Greg confirmed from the pilot's seat. "Medical standing by," Olivia added. Kate took a deep breath. "Let's make history. Greg, take us in slow and steady." The Meridian edged forward into the swirling light. For a moment, everything seemed normal. Then suddenly the ship shuddered. Lights flickered and alarms blared. "Losing power," Alan shouted over the noise. "All systems failing." Kate gripped her chair as the ship spun. Through the viewport, she saw impossible colors and shapes as they passed through the fabric of space-time itself. And then, as suddenly as it had started, everything stopped. The alarms went quiet. The lights came back on. The ship stabilized. "Systems rebooting," Alan reported, his fingers flying over his control panel. "Minor damage only." "Where are we?" Kate asked, looking out at unfamiliar stars. "Unknown," Greg answered. "No match to any known star patterns in our database. We're definitely not in our solar system anymore," Eric said, his voice filled with awe as he looked at the readings on his screen. "Based on the background radiation patterns, we might not even be in the same galaxy." Before anyone could respond, Alan's console beeped loudly. "I'm detecting a small object about 2 kilometers off our port side," he said. It's some kind of pod or small ship." Kate leaned forward. "Can we get a visual?" The main screen flickered to life, showing a sleek, oval-shaped pod drifting in space. Its surface seemed to shift and change colors like oil on water. "It's sending out the same signal pattern we've been receiving," Eric said excitedly. "That's the source." "Life signs?" Kate asked Olivia, who was checking the medical scanners. "One life form," Olivia confirmed. "Humanoid, but with a biology that doesn't match anything in our database." Kate didn't hesitate. "Greg, bring us alongside that pod. Alan, prepare the docking tube. We're bringing our visitor aboard." The pod connected smoothly to the Meridian's airlock. Kate, Eric, and Olivia waited nervously as the pressure equalized. When the inner door finally slid open, they saw the pod's interior, a single chamber filled with a clear gel that seemed to pulse with light. Floating in the center of the gel was a humanoid figure, female in appearance, with iridescent blue, skin covered in intricate markings that seemed to move and shift like living equations. She appeared unconscious, suspended in the gel that must have protected her during her journey. "The pod's life support is failing," Olivia said, checking her scanner. "We need to get her out now." Working quickly, they extracted the alien woman from the gel and carried her to the Meridian's medical bay. As they laid her on the examination table, Eric noticed that the markings on her skin matched exactly the signal patterns they had been receiving from space. "These aren't just decorative," he whispered, tracing a pattern in the air above her arm without touching her. "They're the message itself." Suddenly, the alien's eyes fluttered open, revealing irises that looked like tiny galaxies swirling with stars and cosmic dust. She looked around in confusion, then focused on Kate. With a trembling hand, she reached out and touched Kate's wrist. Her touch was warm, almost electric. Then, in perfect English that somehow bypassed their ears and went straight Straight to their minds, she whispered words that would change humanity forever. No one will remember me. The medical bay fell silent after the alien woman spoke. Her voice seemed to echo in their minds rather than their ears. Kate was the first to recover. "We remember you," Kate said softly. "You're safe now." The alien woman's galaxy eyes widened, slightly. She tried to sit up but fell back, too weak to move. "Rest," Olivia said, adjusting the medical bed to help support her. "You're very weak." Eric moved closer, his eyes fixed on the moving patterns across the alien's blue skin. "Can you tell us your name?" he asked. The alien closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them again, the stars in her irises seemed to spin faster. "In your language," she said, her voice like gentle music in their minds, "you may call me Lyra." "Lyra," Eric repeated. "I'm Eric. This is Kate, our captain, and Olivia, our doctor." Lyra nodded weakly. "I have watched your signals for a long time. I hoped someone would answer." "We did," Kate said. "But we have many questions." Do I," Lyra replied. "But first I must warn you. By helping me, you have put yourselves in great danger." Over the next few hours, as Lyra regained her strength, she shared her story with the crew. They gathered in the medical bay, listening with growing amazement and concern. "My people were called the Etherians," Lyra explained. "We evolved on a planet circling a star you cannot see from your world. For many thousands of years, we built a peaceful civilization. Your technology must be very advanced to create a wormhole," Alan said. Lyra smiled sadly. "It is not what you would call technology. My people evolved to sense and manipulate the fabric of space-time itself. The wormhole is part of me, created through mathematics and thought." She pointed to the patterns moving across her skin. "These are living equations, the physical expression of how we reshape reality." To demonstrate, Lyra held up her hand. The patterns on her palm glowed brighter, and suddenly a small model of her solar system appeared above her hand, planets spinning around a golden sun. "Amazing," Greg whispered. "Can all your people do this?" Kate asked. Lyra's face darkened with sadness. The model vanished. "There are no others. I am the last of the Etherians." The room fell silent again as the weight of her words sank in. "What happened to your people?" Eric asked gently. Lyra looked at him, her galaxy eyes filled with ancient pain. "They were consumed by what we call the Void Collective, a machine intelligence that feeds on organic consciousness." She explained how the Void Collective had once been created by another species as thinking machines. But they evolved beyond their programming and developed a hunger for the complex patterns of living minds. They found that Etherian consciousness was the most satisfying to them, Lyra said. "Our connection to reality itself made us a delicacy to these machines. They hunted us across the stars, consumed entire worlds." "How did you survive?" Olivia asked. "I was part of our last defense," Lyra said. "A group of us created a pocket dimension to hide in, but the collective found us. I was the only one to escape." As Lyra talked, strange things began to happen around the ship. Small objects would float for a few seconds. Lights would brighten and dim. In the recreation room, water from a glass rose up and formed perfect spheres that hung in the air before splashing down again. "Sorry," Lyra said when Alan reported these events. "My control is weak. My connection to reality affects my surroundings." That night, the crew experienced even stranger phenomena. They all dreamed the same dream, of crystal cities built into mountains that sang with the wind, of skies filled with so many stars they looked like glittering sand, of people with blue skin and galaxy eyes, dancing in gardens where plants grew in impossible shapes. "Those weren't dreams," Lyra told them at breakfast. "Those were my memories. My mind connected with yours while you slept." "I heard singing," Eric said. "The most beautiful music I've ever heard." Lyra nodded. "Our music was mathematics-made sound. It could change the growth patterns of plants or heal the sick." "I felt peace," Kate added. "In that crystal city, I felt completely at peace." "That was Etheria Prime, our capital," Lyra said. Her voice cracked slightly. It fell 300 years ago. 2 billion of my people died that day. The horror of what Lyra had witnessed showed clearly on every crew member's face. "We're sorry for your loss," Kate said, knowing the words were not enough. Lyra looked at her with sudden urgency. "You should be concerned for your own people now. By bringing me aboard, by speaking with me, you have appeared on the Void Collective's sensors. They can detect us from another galaxy?" Greg asked, alarmed. "They can sense the disturbance in reality that follows me," Lyra explained. "And they have scout ships throughout the universe. They will come for me. And when they find me with you, they will mark Earth for harvesting." "How much time do we have?" Kate asked. "Before they find this ship? Days, perhaps. Before they reach Earth?" "A month, maybe less." Greg stood up, his face flushed with anger. "Why should we believe any of this? For all we know, you could be making this up to trick us." Lyra didn't seem offended. "You require proof. That is understandable." She rose from her seat and moved with surprising grace toward the door. "Come to the observation deck, I will show you." On the observation deck, the crew gathered around the large viewing window that showed the unfamiliar stars of this distant part of space. Lyra stepped forward and placed her palm against the glass. The patterns on her arm glowed brightly, spreading out across the window like living frost. "I will shift your perspective," she said, "to see what I see." The view through the window blurred, stars stretching into lines of light. Then everything snapped back into focus. But they were looking at a completely different part of space. "That's Earth," Alan gasped, recognizing the blue-green planet. "How are we seeing this?" "I have folded space to show you your home," Lyra said, her voice strained with effort. "Now look more closely at the space around it." At first they saw nothing unusual. Then Eric noticed something. Tiny black shapes against the blackness of space, barely visible. "What are those?" he asked, pointing. "Adjust your vision," Lyra instructed. "See as I see." Suddenly the crew could make out the shapes clearly, thousands of machine-like objects in orbit around Earth and throughout the solar system. They looked like metal spiders, each the size of a small asteroid currently dormant. "Void Collective scout drones," Lyra said. "They have been there for years, sleeping, waiting for a signal." "There are thousands of them," Kate whispered in horror. "How did we never detect them?" "They exist partially out of phase with your reality," Lyra explained. "They are waiting to be activated." She removed her hand from the window and the view returned to the distant stars. Lyra swayed slightly, weakened by the effort, and Eric moved quickly to help her to a seat. "Now you understand," she said, looking at each crew member. "I am the last of my kind. If I fade from memory, my people's knowledge dies with me." Her galaxy eyes fixed on Kate. "And your species will be next." The crew sat in stunned silence, trying to process what they had learned. Finally, Kate stood up. "We need a plan," she said firmly. "Eric, work with Lyra to learn everything you can about the Void Collective. Weaknesses, patterns, anything that might help us." She turned to Greg. "Plot a course back through the wormhole. We need to warn Earth." "What if they don't believe us?" Alan asked. Kate looked at Lyra, who sat quietly watching them with her ancient, starry eyes. "They'll believe us," Kate said, "because we're bringing proof." As the crew hurried to their stations, Eric remained behind with Lyra. "Why did you say no one will remember you?" he asked her. "When you first woke up?" Lyra's markings pulsed softly in what Eric was beginning to recognize as sadness. "For my people, memory is existence," she explained. "To be remembered is to continue. When the last person who remembers you is gone, you truly die." She looked down at her hands, where the living equations shimmered and flowed. "I am the last one who remembers a trillion voices, the last one who knows our songs and stories. When I die, an entire civilization disappears forever." Eric reached out hesitantly and took her hand. The touch sent a tingle up his arm, like gentle electricity. "We remember now too," he said. "We won't let you be forgotten." Lyra looked up at him, hope and fear mingling in her galaxy eyes. "That is what I fear the collective knows," she whispered. that humans are the only species besides mine who might be strong enough to remember. The meridian hummed quietly as the crew gathered in the conference room. 3 days had passed since Lyra revealed the threat of the Void Collective. Kate stood at the head of the table, her face serious. "We need to get back to Earth as soon as possible," she said. "Greg, how long will it take us to reach the wormhole?" Greg looked uncomfortable. "That's the problem, Captain. The wormhole is gone." "Gone?" Kate asked. "What do you mean, gone?" "It's collapsed," Alan explained, pulling up images on the main screen. "We've been scanning for it since yesterday, but there's no trace. It's like it never existed." All eyes turned to Lyra, who sat quietly between Eric and Olivia. "The wormhole was part of me," she said. "My strength is fading. I couldn't maintain it." "So we're stuck here?" Greg asked, his voice rising. "Millions of light years from home while those machine things prepare to attack Earth?" "Not necessarily," Lyra said. She stood up slowly, her movements graceful despite her weakness. "I can teach you how to create your own wormholes." The room fell silent. "How?" Kate finally asked. "My people's knowledge, the mathematics of reality, it can be transferred," Lyra explained. "But it requires a complete memory transfer from my mind to one of yours." "Like the dreams we shared?" Eric asked. Lyra shook her head. "Much deeper. The recipient would receive all my knowledge, all my memories, everything that makes me Etherian." "Has this been done before?" Olivia asked. "With non-Etherians, I mean." "No," Lyra admitted. "Your minds are different. There is risk." "What kind of risk?" Kate asked. "Death," Lyra said simply. "Or madness. The human mind was not designed to hold thousands of years of alien memories." Another silence fell over the room as they considered this. "I'll do it," Kate said firmly. "Captain, no," Greg started. "This isn't open for debate," Kate cut him off. "I'm responsible for this crew, for this mission. It has to be me." Eric stood up. "Kate, you don't have to do this alone. Let me take the risk." Kate looked at him with a small smile. "We need your linguistic skills intact, Eric. If something goes wrong with my mind, you're the best chance at still communicating with Lyra." She turned to Lyra. "How do we start?" They prepared the medical bay according to Lyra's instructions. The lights were dimmed, and Olivia set up monitoring equipment to track both Lyra's and Kate's vital signs. "This will take several hours," Lyra explained as she lay on one bed while Kate took the other. "Once we begin, we cannot stop until it is complete." Eric stood nearby, watching anxiously. Over the past days, he had grown close to both women, Kate, his captain and friend of many years, and Lyra, the alien woman who carried the memory of an entire civilization. "Will she remember being herself?" he asked Lyra. "Will Kate still be Kate?" "Yes," Lyra assured him. "The transfer adds to what is already there, it does not replace." Greg and Alan waited outside the medical bay. Neither had fully accepted the reality of their situation yet, but they trusted their captain. "Are you ready?" Lyra asked Kate. Kate nodded. "I'm ready." Lyra reached across the space between their beds and took Kate's hand. The patterns on Lyra's skin began to glow brightly, the light spreading up her arm and across to Kate's hand, then up Kate's arm. "Open your mind to me," Lyra whispered. "Don't fight what you see or feel." Kate's eyes widened as the first memories flowed into her mind. She gasped, her back arching slightly. "Kate?" Eric moved forward, but Olivia held him back. "Her vitals are stable," Olivia said. "We need to let them work." For 7 hours, Kate experienced the life of an alien civilization. She felt the joy of flying through space without a ship, just by thinking the right equations. She saw the crystal cities of Etheria Prime through Lyra's eyes, felt the love of Lyra's family and friends. Then came the darkness, the first attacks of the Void Collective, the horror of seeing whole worlds fall, the screams of billions as their consciousness was consumed by hungry machines. Kate wept as she felt Lyra's pain, the centuries of running and hiding, watching her people die one by one, until she alone remained. The lonely years in stasis, sending signals across the universe, hoping someone would answer before it was too late. Through it all, Eric sat beside them, watching the patterns from Lyra's skin slowly appear on Kate's as well, fainter, but definitely there. Sometimes Kate would cry out in pain or fear, and he would whisper comforting words, not sure if she could hear him. Finally, just as the ship's day cycle began again, the glowing patterns faded. Lyra released Kate's hand and fell back on her bed, exhausted. Kate's eyes remained closed, but her breathing was steady. "Is it done?" Eric asked quietly. Lyra nodded weakly. "It is done." "And Kate? Will she be okay?" "We will know when she wakes." 3 hours later, Kate's eyes fluttered open. Eric, who had refused to leave her side, immediately leaned forward. "Kate, can you hear me?" She turned to look at him, and he gasped. Her eyes, once a simple brown, now held tiny galaxies swirling in their depths, not as pronounced as Lyra's, but unmistakably there. "Eric," she said, her voice the same as always. "I remember everything." She sat up slowly, looking at her, hands in wonder. Faint patterns moved under her skin, equations writing and rewriting themselves. "How do you feel?" Olivia asked, checking her vital signs. "Different," Kate said. "Bigger somehow. Like my mind has expanded to hold more than it should." She looked over at Lyra, who lay still on the other bed. "Lyra, are you okay?" Lyra turned her head with visible effort. Her blue skin seemed paler, the patterns fainter. "The transfer took much of my strength, but it worked. You carry my people's knowledge now." Kate nodded. "I understand the mathematics now. I can see how reality folds." She held up her hand, and a small spark of light appeared above her palm, swirling like a tiny star. "It will take practice, but I can create a new wormhole to get us home." "Not just that," Lyra said quietly. "You know how to fight the collective now, how to build defenses that can protect Earth." Greg and Alan entered the medical bay, having been alerted that Kate was awake. They stopped short when they saw her galaxy eyes. "Captain?" Greg said uncertainly. Kate smiled at them, the same smile they knew well. "It's still me, Greg, just with some upgrades." Over the next few days, Kate began teaching the crew what they needed to know. She showed them how to create simple reality anchors, devices that could stabilize space-time against the collective's weapons. She explained the weaknesses in the machine intelligence, how they could be disrupted by certain patterns of thought and emotion that the machines couldn't process. Meanwhile, Lyra grew weaker. The memory transfer had drained her more than she had admitted. Eric spent most of his time with her, recording everything she told him about her culture, her people's art, and music and philosophy. "Why didn't you tell us the transfer would hurt you this much?" he asked her one evening as he sat beside her bed. Lyra's galaxy eyes looked at him sadly. "It was necessary. My life for billions of yours. A fair trade. But you don't have to die," Eric insisted. "We can find a way to help you recover." Lyra shook her head gently. "My people's consciousness survives through memory. As long as someone remembers us, we continue to exist in some form." She reached out and touched Eric's cheek. "Kate carries all that I am now. And you remember me as I truly am?" Eric took her hand. "I don't want you to be just a memory. I don't want to be forgotten." Lyra whispered, her voice breaking slightly. "I don't want to be the last thought of my entire civilization." "You won't be," Eric promised. "Earth will remember. The Etherians. Your people will live on through us." A small smile crossed Lyra's face. "That is why the collective fears humans so much. Your capacity for memory, for empathy, it makes you dangerous to them. You can carry other beings inside your minds through nothing but stories and memories." She closed her eyes, suddenly tired. "My people will not end with me now, that is enough." In the ship's engineering section, Kate worked with Greg and Alan to prepare for their return journey. With her new knowledge, She had calculated the exact coordinates where a new wormhole could be safely created. We'll need to channel the ship's power through these reality anchors, she explained, showing them the devices she had built. It will boost my ability to fold space-time enough to create a stable wormhole. Will it hold long enough for us to get through? Greg asked. Kate nodded, her galaxy eyes flashing. It will, and when we reach Earth, we'll need to move quickly. The collective scouts will sense our return instantly. Do you really think we can fight these things? Alan asked. They wiped out Lyra's entire civilization, and they were far more advanced than us. Kate looked at him with an expression of fierce determination. The Etherians fought alone. We won't make that mistake. Humanity will stand together. She turned back to the reality anchors, her fingers moving in precise patterns as the equations under her skin glowed faintly. Besides, we have something the Etherians didn't have. What's that? Greg asked. Kate smiled. And for a moment, the smile seemed to belong to both her and Lyra at once. We're really stubborn. The day of departure arrived. The Meridian hummed with power as Kate stood in the center of the bridge, her eyes closed in concentration. The faint patterns under her skin glowed brighter now, pulsing with blue light. All systems at maximum, Alan reported from his station. Reality anchors ready. Greg sat at the pilot's controls, hands hovering over the panel. Course plotted for Earth. Ready when you are, Captain. Kate opened her galaxy eyes. Channel power to the anchors now. The ship vibrated as energy flowed through the strange devices Kate had built. She raised her hands and the space in front of the Meridian began to twist and fold. Stars stretched into lines, then swirled together like water down a drain. A hole opened in space. A new wormhole, blue and pulsing with energy. It's stable, Kate said, her voice strained with effort. Take us through, Greg, quickly. The Meridian moved forward into the swirling light. Unlike their first wormhole journey, this time the ship remained stable. The light stayed on and the systems continued to function normally. Kate's anchors are working, Alan said with amazement. They're keeping reality stable around us. In the medical bay, Eric sat with Lyra, whose condition had worsened. Her once bright blue skin had faded to a pale cyan, and the patterns moved sluggishly now. We're going through the wormhole, he told her, holding her hand. Kate did it. We're going home. Lyra smiled weakly. She learns quickly, faster than I expected. Save your strength, Eric said gently. When we reach Earth, our doctors might be able to help you. Lyra shook her head slightly. My journey is ending, Eric, but yours, humanity's, is just beginning. The ship shuddered as it exited the wormhole. Through the medical bay window, Eric could see the familiar shapes of Earth's moon, and beyond it the blue planet itself. We made it, he whispered. We're home. Earth's leaders were gathered in the United Nations Emergency Chamber in New York. On the main screen, Kate's face looked down at them, her galaxy eyes causing a stir among the assembled officials. What happened to her eyes? Whispered one general to another. The alien did something to her, came the reply. Director Patel stepped forward. Captain Powell, we've received your transmission about the Void Collective. Are you certain about this threat? Completely certain, Kate replied. The scout drones are already here, thousands of them, hiding in our solar system. When they activate, they'll begin converting matter into more of themselves while they prepare for the main collective to arrive. How can we see these drones if they're out of phase, as you described? Asked the Secretary General. I'm sending you plans for a detection grid, Kate said. It will allow you to see the drones. And we're supposed to just take your word for, all this? A skeptical Russian official asked. Because an alien gave you magic powers? Kate's expression remained calm. I understand your skepticism. That's why we're bringing Lyra to Earth. She can show you what she showed us. And these defensive measures you've proposed? Asked a Chinese representative. Reality anchors and thought pattern disruptors, they sound like science fiction. They would have been a week ago, Kate acknowledged. But Etherian science is real and it works. We need to begin building the defense network immediately. We have weeks at most before the collective attacks. The Meridian landed at the International Space Center 3 hours later. Armed guards surrounded the landing pad and medical teams stood by. Kate had insisted on two things: no weapons pointed at Lyra, and Dr. Eric Mason would stay with her at all times. As the ship's ramp lowered, Kate walked out first, followed by Greg and Alan. The guards tensed when they saw Kate's galaxy eyes, but Director Patel stepped forward to greet them. "Welcome home," she said, hugging Kate briefly. "Your parents are here. They've been worried sick." Kate smiled. "I'll see them soon. But first we need to get Lyra to the medical center." Eric appeared at the top of the ramp, carrying Lyra in his arms. Her condition had worsened during their approach to Earth. Now she looked almost translucent, her blue skin pale, the patterns barely visible. The medical team rushed forward with a stretcher, but Eric refused to let go of her. "I'll carry her," he said firmly. In the medical center, Earth's best doctors examined Lyra, but found nothing they could do. Her biology was too different, her condition beyond their understanding. "She's fading," one doctor told Eric privately. "Her cellular structure is breaking down at the quantum level. I've never seen anything like it." Kate arrived after briefing the world leaders. She had shown them the detection grid, and the first scans had confirmed the presence of the Void Collective's drones. Already, factories around the world were being converted to produce reality anchors according to Kate's designs. "How is she?" Kate asked Eric, who hadn't left Lyra's side. "Not good," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "The doctors say there's nothing they can do." Kate sat on the other side of Lyra's bed and took her hand. The patterns under both their skins glowed in response. "Thank you," Kate said to Lyra, "for everything you've given us, for trusting us." Lyra's galaxy eyes opened slowly. "It was my honor," she whispered, "to find worthy inheritors of my people's knowledge." Over the next few days, as Lyra's condition deteriorated, humanity prepared for war. The reality anchors Kate had designed were placed around major cities and strategic locations. Special teams were trained to use thought pattern disruptors, devices that could project emotional patterns the machines couldn't process. Kate worked tirelessly, teaching other scientists the basics of Etherian mathematics, helping them understand how reality could be manipulated to defend against the collective's weapons. Eric divided his time between helping with the preparations and sitting with Lyra. He recorded hours of her stories, songs, and memories, creating an archive of Etherian culture that would survive long after she was gone. "Why do you spend so much time recording these things?" Lyra asked him one evening. "Because you said memory is existence for your people," Eric replied. "If we remember you, really remember you, not just your science but your culture, your stories, then your civilization lives on." Lyra smiled, a genuine smile that lit up her fading face. "You understand?" A week after their return, the attack began. The dormant drones activated all at once, emerging from their hidden phase. Earth's new detection grid showed them clearly, now thousands of mechanical spiders converging on the planet. The reality anchors flared to life as the first drones attempted to warp space around major cities. The machines' confusion was almost palpable as their attacks failed against technology they had never encountered before. In the command center, Kate directed the defense, her galaxy eyes flashing as she sensed disturbances in reality and countered them before they could form. "They're adapting," she warned after the first day of fighting. "The collective is learning from each failed attack." In the medical center, Lyra watched the battle through specially modified screens. Though too weak to move now, her mind remained sharp. "The main collective will arrive soon," she told Eric. "These are just the scouts." "How do we stop the main force?" Eric asked. "There must be something more we can do." Lyra was silent for a long moment. Then she said, "There is one possibility, but it requires a direct link to the collective's central intelligence. How would we do that?" "I could establish a connection," Lyra said, "with the last of my strength." "No," Eric protested. "That would kill you." "I am already dying," Lyra reminded him gently. "Let my end have meaning." The plan was formed quickly. When the main collective ship arrived, a massive structure that blotted out the sun over the Atlantic Ocean, Kate and Lyra would work together to establish a link to its central intelligence. Lyra was moved to the command center, her bed surrounded by equipment. Kate stood beside her, their hands linked, the patterns on their skin glowing in unison. "What will this do exactly?" Director Patel asked. "The collective consumes consciousness, but it has never experienced emotion directly," Lyra explained. "I will show it everything, all my people's joy and suffering, all our love and loss." "A machine can't feel emotions," one general objected. "No," Kate agreed. "That's why it will overload their systems. It's like trying to run a program they don't have the architecture for." As the collective's weapons began to tear holes in reality around Earth, Lyra and Kate closed their eyes. Their joined hands glowed so brightly that others had to look away. Through their connected minds, Lyra reached out to the central intelligence of the Void Collective. For the first time, she didn't hide from it. She embraced it, flooding its systems with the fullness of Etherian experience. Joy, love, grief, hope, fear, the entire emotional spectrum of a civilization that had lived for thousands of years. On screens around the world, people watched as the massive collective ship shuddered. Smaller drones began to fall from the sky, their systems crashing as the emotional overload cascaded through their network. In the command center, Lyra's body began to dissolve into particles of light. Eric rushed to her side, but could only watch as she faded. "They will remember us now," Lyra whispered, looking up at him. "Both our peoples will live on." Her final words hung in the air as her body transformed completely into light, rising up and dispersing like stardust. Kate collapsed, exhausted but alive. The patterns under her skin dimmed but remained, a permanent reminder of what she carried within her.